the confirmation of the Ramadan Crescent and other crescents. 4-5. The month of Ramadan is one of the lunar months. Confirmation is based on the sighting of the crescents. It is a duty for people to look for the crescent. Moon at sunset on the 29th, day of the month of Sha'ban. If they see the crescent moon, they begin the Ramadan fast the following day. If the sky is cloudy or hazy and the crescent cannot be seen, they complete the month of SHABAN as 30 days and then begin the fast. In addition, it is appropriate to search for the Ramadan Crescent on the 29th day of RAJAB. This way, the exact number of days in Sha'ban becomes clearer. 4-6. On the 29th day of Ramadan, the crescent of Shawwal is observed starting from sunset. If it is sighted, the festival is celebrated. If not, Ramadan is observed for 30 days. 4-7. Lunar months are sometimes 30 days long and sometimes 29 days long. Just as every new moon seen in the shape of a crescent is called a crescent until its third night, the 26th and 27th nights of each month are also called crescents. On other days, it is simply called KAMER. 4-8. The beginning of each lunar month is determined either by the sighting of the HILAL or by completing the days of the previous month to 30. The plural of HILAL is EHILLE. When the HILAL is seen, it is disliked. MAKROOH, to point and say HILAL, HILAL. This is a custom from the era of ignorance. Upon seeing the crescent moon, one should recite the takbir and tahlil 3 times, followed by the following supplication 3 times. May the crescent bring goodness and guidance. I believe in Allah, who created you. Praise be to Allah, who has taken away a month like this and brought a month like this. O Allah, grant us security, faith, and peace. Meaning, O crescent of goodness and righteousness, I have believed in Allah, the Exalted, who created you. Praise be to Allah, the Most High, who has taken away this month, Sha'ban, and brought this month, Ramadan. O Allah, grant us this month with security, faith, safety, and peace. 49. The sighting of the crescent moon after sunset is valid. For this reason, if the new moon is seen before or after noon, neither is the fast begun nor broken on that day. In fact, this new moon is considered to belong to the following night. This is the view of Imam Azim and Imam Muhammad. According to Imam Abu Yusuf, while a crescent seen after Zawal belongs to the following night, a crescent seen before Zawal belongs to the previous night. Thus, Ramadan, or the festival, is established by this crescent. 4. According to custom, a crescent cannot be seen before noon, unless it spans 2 nights. According to 3 imams, a crescent seen during the day is not considered valid. This crescent must belong to the following night. The statements of astrologers on this matter are also not valid. The crescent must be seen at night. 5-0 when the sky is cloudy. The testimony of a Muslim sane, adult, and just person is sufficient to confirm that the Ramadan crescent has been seen. One must begin fasting based on this person's statement that the crescent has been seen. It makes nitrogen monoxide difference whether this person is a man or a woman. In this case, the testimony of such a person is valid, and the testimony of another such person is also acceptable. In this context, just refers to one whose goodness outweighs their evil. According to the prevailing opinion, the testimony of anyone who is uninformed on this matter is acceptable. This testimony constitutes a report. It is merely a statement regarding a matter of religion. In this context, the statement of testimony does not require a lawsuit, a court, or a judge's ruling. Prudence dictates accepting this. 51. The one who sees the crescent must explain it. That is, I look from this part of the city or from outside it, I saw the crescent on this side of the horizon, right at the edge of a cloud or in the clear part between 2 clouds. In this manner, is such a statement required or not? Some scholars say it is necessary. However, according to a reliable tradition, it is not necessary, and the testimony remains valid even without such a description. Those who hear this testimony must begin fasting. 52. Ampere, Muslim, who sees the Ramadan Crescent must immediately bear witness that very night. Even if it is a woman who is supposed to remain at home, she must go out and bear witness to the crescent she sees, without waiting for her husband's or master's permission. For this is a religiously obligatory duty. 5.3. Whoever sees the crescent moon, if in a city with a judge, must immediately appear before the judge and give testimony. The judge then announces the situation. If there is no judge in that place, they go to the mosque and testify. If the person testifying is known to be just, people begin fasting based on their word. According to the Shafis, the judge's ruling makes fasting obligatory for everyone, even if this ruling is based solely on the opinion of a fair witness. The judge's ruling resolves the dispute, and it becomes necessary for followers of other schools of thought to fast as well. 5.4. The sighting of the crescent moon and the beginning of the month are not determined directly, but rather based on a specific event. For example, if someone sues another person in court, saying, "I have a claim against this person for a certain amount of money to be paid on the first day of Ramadan, and now the Ramadan Crescent has been sighted. For this reason, I demand that he pay me this debt." The debtor may object by saying, "Yes, I owe the amount he described, but Ramadan has not yet begun." The judge, upon the testimony of the two witnesses the plaintiff will present regarding the sighting of the crescent, rules that the debt must be paid, thus also ruling that the Ramadan Crescent has been sighted, filing a lawsuit in this manner to prove the crescent moon is appropriate, according to Imam al-Azam. According to two Imams, such a lawsuit is not necessary. 55. Even if the testimony of someone who sees the crescent alone is not accepted, they must still fast. If he does not fast on that day, he must make up for it. Therefore, nitrogen monoxide expiation is required. This is because what he saw may have been a hallucination rather than the new moon. If a person breaks the fast before their testimony has been rejected by the judge, no expiation is required either, because there is a possibility that it might be rejected. Expiations, however, are nullified by doubt. But if they break their fast after their testimony has been accepted, expiation is required, because in this case, their testimony has been validated by the judge's decision. 56. When the sky is not overcast, regarding the crescent moons of Ramadan, Shawwal, and Dhu al-Hijjah, the testimonies of not just one or two people, but of many others whose testimonies, when combined with theirs, give rise to a strong presumption, are accepted. Determining their numbers up to the authorities' discretion. According to one opinion, there must be 50 men, regarding whether the witnesses are from outside the town or not. According to a strong tradition, it makes nitrogen monoxide difference. According to another opinion, in this situation, the testimony of two just witnesses from outside the town is accepted. It is conceivable that they may have observed the crescent from a more suitable and convenient location. According to a tradition from Imam Azam, in this situation, the testimony of two just witnesses is sufficient, whether they have come from the countryside or not. For the crescent moon, it is appropriate to rely on the testimony of these two witnesses. 57. When the sky is overcast, the testimony of two just men or one man and two women regarding the crescent moons of Shawwal and Dhu al-Hijjah is accepted. In this matter, justice, freedom, and the number of witnesses are required. The character references of the witnesses must also be verified. There is a dispute regarding whether the statement of testimony and the filing of a lawsuit are required in a place where there is no judge or governor and the sky is overcast. If two trustworthy individuals report that they have seen the Shawwal crescent, there is no harm in people breaking their fast. 58. If, on a cloudy day, only the judge is able to sight the Ramadan Crescent, he may, if he wishes, appoint a proxy to witness the sighting of the crescent in his presence, or he may directly announce to the people that they should fast. However, such a solitary testimony is not valid for the Eid Shawwal crescent, for this would bring an end to a worship practice. However, in this situation, there is also a legal aspect to the testimony, for people will be ending their fast. In legal terms, the testimony of less than 2 witnesses is not valid. For this reason, if the governor or judge were to cite the Shawwal Crescent alone, they would neither perform the Eid prayer nor order the people to perform it, nor would they break their fast, whether in private or in public, because there is a possibility that the cited crescent is an illusion. 5.9. The Shawwal Crescent is searched for after sunset on the 29th day of Ramadan. Anyone who sees this crescent alone does not break their fast, exercising caution regarding worship. If they do break their fast, only making up the fast is required. Even if they break the fast while their testimony is not accepted, only making up the fast is required. No expiation is necessary. 6.0. Those who began the Ramadan fast based on someone's testimony, even if they do not see the Shawwal Crescent on the 30th day, break their fast according to the correct opinion. When the sky is overcast and cloudy, they celebrate the festival without dispute. According to the KAMER, Shafis, the testimony of a single just witness is sufficient for Shawwal. This is the preferred opinion among them. When the judge rules on this, the festival is celebrated. 61. If, despite overcast skies, the judge accepts the testimony of 2 witnesses and the fast is observed for 30 days, but the Shawwal Crescent is not cited, the following applies. If the sky remains overcast, they break their fast the next day. There is consensus on this. However, if the sky is clear, according to one opinion, they do not break the fast, but according to another, more authoritative opinion, they break the fast and celebrate the festival in this situation as well. 62. If, after the people of a town have fasted for 29 days, 2 trustworthy individuals testify, "We saw the Ramadan Crescent one day before you began your fast," the following is considered. If they are from the people of that town, it is appropriate to accept their testimony, for they have previously abandoned a testimony to be given for the sake of Allah. However, if they have come from a distant place, their testimony is valid, for they are not to be blamed for this testimony. 6.3. For the validation of months other than Ramadan, if the sky is overcast, the testimony of at least 2 just men or 1 man and 2 women is required. If the sky is clear, the testimony of a large congregation is required. If this congregation is sufficiently large and reliable to establish certainty, being Muslim is not a condition for the acceptance of their testimony. According to another opinion, to establish the new moon of the 9 months other than Ramadan, Shawwal, and Dhul Hijjah, the testimony of 2 just witnesses is sufficient, regardless of whether the sky is cloudy or clear. This is because a large crowd does not gather to observe the new moons of these months. 6.4. If the people of a town fast for 28 days without sighting the crescent moon, and then go on to sight the Shawwal Crescent, the following applies. If they saw the Sha'ban crescent and counted it as 30 days, they would only have 2, make up 1 day. The month of Ramadan would then be 29 days. However, if they counted 30 days without seeing the Sha'ban crescent, they must make up 2 days, because there is a possibility that the month of Sha'ban could be 29 days. However, if the people of that town fast for 29 days and then sight the Shawwal Crescent, they do not need to make up the missed days, because the month of Ramadan may last 29 days. 6.5. If the Ramadan fast in a certain town is observed for 29 days based on the sighting of the crescent moon, the sick people in that town will also make up this Ramadan fast as 29 days at a later time. However, if such a sick person is unaware of how the people of that locality acted, they must observe a full 30 days of make-up fasting to definitely be relieved of their obligation. 6.6. The locations where the moon and sunrise vary depending on regions and geographical areas. However, according to the accepted view regarding fasting, these rising locations are not taken into account. The fatwa is based on this. If those in Western countries sight the Ramadan Crescent, Muslims in eastern regions who receive this news are also required to fast. However, for the sighting in one locality to be valid for the people of another locality, the testimony regarding this sighting must be accepted and ruled upon by a judge. Otherwise, merely reporting a single sighting cannot serve as evidence for the people of a region where the new moon has not been seen. Namely, two just men must come before the judge of a town and say, the testimony of the witnesses who saw the crescent in that town has been accepted by the town's judge in accordance with procedure, and a ruling has been issued. The judge's ruling constitutes a document and evidence. These witnesses thus become witnesses to this ruling. Now, the judge of the other region may also accept this testimony and render a ruling accordingly if those who come to report that the crescent has been sighted and a decision has been made in another country constitute a majority so large that their words cannot be denied. Procedures are carried out in accordance with the report without the need for such a ruling. 6.7. The fact that the varying locations of the moon's rise and its determination by calculation are not relied upon in matters of fasting is based on other hadiths that convey the same meaning as this sacred hadith. When you see the crescent moon, fast, and when you see the crescent moon, break your fast. According to this hadith, the start of fasting and the breaking of the fast are tied to the sighting of the crescent moon. Therefore, when a portion of Muslims sight the new moon, the event of sighting the new moon, which is the basis for fasting, has taken place. Thus, the obligation to observe the mandatory fast and celebrate the festival applies to all. The rules of Islam do not require that the rising of the new moon be considered at different times in various regions or that it be determined by astronomers, nor is it necessary to investigate whether the crescent moon can be observed based on scientific methods. For such scientific research is not always possible everywhere and at all times, nor does it align with the ease prescribed by the religion. Furthermore, it is often inappropriate to prefer the report of one or two reporters who announce the sighting of the new moon based on scientific observation over the report of the other, which is based on visual observation. This is because there is a possibility that one of them may err in calculation, while the other may err in observation. According to the Maliki and Hanbali schools, variations in the time of sunrise are not taken into account. According to the Shafi'i school, in two towns separated by a distance of 24 farsakhs or more, differing sightings are considered valid. The sighting of the crescent in one town is not considered a sighting for the other. 6.8. Since variations in the crescent's place of appearance are not taken into account, if the people of one town observe the Ramadan Crescent, fast for 29 days, and then celebrate Eid, and if it turns out that the people of another town also saw the crescent and fasted for 30 days, then the people of the first town must fast one day as a make-up fast after the festival, because the first sighting of the new moon is not considered valid. There is a possibility that the residents of this town saw the crescent one day later. 6.9. According to some Hanafi scholars, differences in places of sunrise are valid. For this reason, since the crescent is visible in the west, Muslims in the east are not required to fast or break the fast on that day. In this regard, the people of each town act according to their own observations, fast, celebrate the holiday, and sacrifice animals. However, such a difference is not possible between two localities separated by less than 24 farsakhs. Thus, the new moon spotted in one of these two nearby towns is valid in the other. 70. There are two opinions among Islamic jurists regarding whether the statements of just and knowledgeable timekeepers versed in astronomy may be relied upon to determine the start of the Ramadan fast or the celebration of Eid. View accepted as valid by the majority is that their statements are not accepted in this matter. Indeed, it is not permissible for a timekeeping expert to act upon the calculations he has made. Although scientific calculations are precise, it It is not certain that those who perform them will not make mistakes. For this reason, discrepancies are always observed between calendars. However, since it is not possible to find people capable of making such precise calculations everywhere, the need to rely on their statements, especially for Muslims living in places like the Sahara or in scattered communities. However, Islamic law has provided leniency in this matter. A hadith states, "Fast when you see the new moon and break your fast. Celebrate the holiday when you see the new moon. If the sky is cloudy, complete the month of Sha'ban to 30 days. It is clear that Islamic fasting is based on a fundamental and simple principle that will never change, one that everyone can understand and accept, and that is the sighting of the new moon. Truly, the words of astrologers are based on calculation rules. However, there are often discrepancies among them, and their statements are not consistent. Furthermore, according to calculations, lunar months are not always exactly 30 or 29 days, but are often slightly irregular. Islamic law, however, mandates that the fast be observed for either exactly 30 or exactly 29 days. Furthermore, according to calculations, lunar months are not always exactly 30 or 29 days long, but are often slightly irregular. Islamic law, however, mandates that the fast be observed for either exactly 30 or exactly 29 days. According to another view held by a minority, one may consult the opinions of time experts and astrologers on this matter. There is nitrogen monoxide harm in relying on their opinions. The scholar of Islamic jurisprudence, Muhammad ibn Muqatil, would rely on their opinions when they reached a consensus among themselves and would consult them. However, in this matter, a consensus among a group of them is necessary. Qadi Abdul-Jabbar also said, there is nitrogen monoxide objection to relying on the statements of astrologers. In our country, for some time now, in accordance with this view, the lunar months have been determined by the observatory and issued in the form of a document. According to Maliki and Hanbali, scholars of Islamic law, the words of astrologers are not to be trusted. For this reason, it is not necessary for everyone to begin fasting based on their statements. However, according to a reliable opinion among the Malikis, astrologers may fast by following their own calculations. Anyone who hears from an astronomer and strongly believes it to be true may also begin fasting based on that calculation. According to the Shafis, while the astrologer's statement is valid regarding himself and those who confirm it, according to the preferred opinion, it is not valid for all people. Accordingly, it is not obligatory for everyone to begin fasting based on the astrologer's statement. Among the Shafis, only Imam Subki has written a work on this subject. This scholar believed that the astronomer's statements could be trusted, given the certainty of the calculations. However, this view was not accepted by other Shafi scholars.